Welcome down to the second episode of the JBFE, the Jake Bowtell Football Experience. Hope you enjoyed or were able to watch episode one. Wanting to talk today about the Monday night football game between the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Cincinnati Bengals, which ended up being a dominant win for the Pittsburgh Steelers to move them to 1-3 on the season and send the Bengals to 0-4. The Steelers won at home at Heinz Field 27-3 in a game that helped get their season back on track. And obviously, I understand that it's against the Bengals, and people will say, well, you're not going to get to play the Bengals every week, and that's true, but you can only beat the team that's put in front of you, and the Steelers didn't just beat them, they throttled the Bengals and basically had their way with them. The Bengals didn't score after the first quarter where they had that field goal. The Steelers defense put Cincinnati under all sorts of pressure. They sacked Andy Dalton 8 times on the night, and there will be tougher foes for the Steelers moving forward, obviously, but this was a good night to feel better about some of the young players on that Steelers defense. Devin Bush had his first career sack. There was just a little more to feel positive about. One of those things, obviously, the progress of Mason Rudolph. Rudolph had 24 completions from 28 attempts for 229 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, passing completion percentage of 85.7%, and a QBR of 124.6. It's been interesting hearing some of the different media commentary about the performance for Rudolph last night, and in general, some of the feedback about the Steelers' offensive showing against the Bengals. A lot of people complaining that they were playing safe, a dink and dunk offense, that you're not going to win many games of NFL football throwing very short yardage passes, to the running backs coming out of the backfield and all that sort of thing. It's really interesting to hear that feedback, because then on the opposite side of things, you've got Dwayne Haskins coming in on the weekend to replace Case Keenum. Haskins goes 9 of 17, a completion percentage of 52.9% for 107 yards, no touchdowns, 3 interceptions, a QBR of 32.8, and he was sacked twice. And the feedback around Haskins' performance was, well, he wasn't ready. He clearly wasn't prepared to start. The team didn't put him in a good position to succeed. You're really going to dent his confidence putting him in these scenarios where he's not in a system and a setup, personnel-wise, scheme-wise, where he's going to succeed. And that's fair enough. But I can't understand how the same set of sort of media talking heads and all that sort of thing can have that criticism of the Washington coaching staff of putting it in an underprepared guy, putting him in a system that he's not going to have some success to build his confidence and help him step into the league. And then at the same time, criticize the Steelers for doing essentially what they would ask of the Redskins, to set Haskins up in a position where he feels comfortable. That's exactly what the Steelers have done. What would the press be like if Rudolph comes into the game against San Francisco, if he comes into the games against Cincinnati, and they're just, setting up consistent long shots down the field, and he gets picked off 2 or 3 times and doesn't throw a touchdown, they lose at home to the Bengals or something? Like, what is the feedback then? Oh, well, the Steelers, they're asking him to do a lot. He's not Ben Roethlisberger. You can't expect this guy to just come in. It seems like people are never happy with what's put out on the field. And this comes from Steelers fans as well. We're not going to win playing like this. You can't play dink and dunk offense, blah, 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 blah. This is the guy's second NFL start. His second game, his second week having a full week of prep as the starter. He's completed 24 of 28 passes, 229 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. His team wins 27-3. He also took a beautiful long shot down the field to hit up Deontay Johnson on a 43-yard reception for a touchdown. It irks me, the double standard, that what we expect from one player is not what we expect from another. It's a double standard. It's hypocritical. Obviously, it's obvious that you are going to need to see the Steelers open up the offense a bit more. Back Rudolph to take those long shots, but you have to set him up in a situation where he feels comfortable to do that. The guy's still learning what it is to be an NFL starter. Let's face it, if Ben Roethlisberger doesn't have his elbow injury, then there's no expectation from the Steelers on Mason Rudolph to be ready to start this season. That's the only reason he's starting. It's highly unlikely that, regardless how badly the Steelers went this season with Roethlisberger, that you would have ever had a situation where they installed Rudolph as a starter, barring injury. So this is a guy who, in his second year, the Steelers are trying to put in a position to succeed. They don't want him to go out there and get mauled. They don't want him to go out there and get picked off 3 or 4 times a game trying to take shots down the field. Trying to avoid a situation like what Dwayne Haskins is experiencing. So I would say, why not give him the benefit of the doubt for 4, 5, 6 games? Why not allow Rudolph to get a little bit of a body of work under his belt before we start saying, he's not the solution long-term at quarterback. He can't play franchise quarterback at this league. You're not going to win games passing 5 yards. Let him breathe. He just completed 85.7% of his passes. His team wins 27-3 at home to get on the board for the season. Let's give it half the season. And I get that there's always higher expectations when you wear, the black and gold of the Steelers, than if you are Josh Rosen in Miami. There is higher expectations of success in Pittsburgh, to win now. They've invested the draft capital to do so, all of these things. But I think we need to be realistic about what can be achieved in a short space of time. We don't know how the rest of the season looks. We don't know how he's going to perform moving forward. And it's funny that everyone wants to jump down the Steelers' throat for not having this, long shot offense. It's highly exciting to watch. They're getting involved with these little toss passes and running the ball. If they go full-on aerial assault in that game and they lose to the Bengals, imagine the criticism that's going to be on them. They're not putting their rookie quarterback in a position to succeed. No, I think it's a double standard. I think, the same people that get on the Redskins for putting Haskins in that position the other night against the Giants are the same people who are going to jump on and criticize the Steelers for trying to put their guy in a position to succeed. It's a double standard. And it just irks me. I wanted to get that off my chest, so I have now, which is good. I did like how they tried to manufacture some yardage for James Conner, for Jalen Samuels, who were both big in the receiving game. Conner led the team in receiving yards, 8 for 83 and a touchdown. Samuels had 8 for 57, and Deontay Johnson looked pretty good as well, taking 77 yards from 6 catches and a touchdown. If you said that Juju Smith-Schuster would only have 3 catches for 15 yards against the Bengals, you would think maybe the Steelers are going to struggle, but they've been able to find ways to win. It's the same stuff people are praising the Saints for, finding ways to win in less than ideal situations where you don't have your ideal personnel on the field, using scheme and your weapons to get W's, to stack wins at the start of the season, to try and get your year set up moving forward. That's just what the Steelers are doing. But it's interesting, the critique around that organization as opposed to around the Saints. It's very interesting. Anyway, I think there are some double standards at play, and we know that. There's different organizations get viewed differently. Different criticisms are leveled against different players. But anyway, that's my thoughts on that. And we can move on there. Steelers getting on the board 27-3 with that win at home over the Bengals. So moving forward, I just want to preview Thursday night football Friday morning, obviously, for Australian viewers like myself. So we've got a massive game between the Rams and the Seahawks in Seattle. So this is a division rivalry in the NFC West. Both teams head into this game 3-1. And this is a huge game. I picked Seattle to win the division at the start of the year. I think they can beat the Rams definitely in this game in Seattle. They'll have their home crowd support behind them, which is huge. I think a key to this is if they can stop the run. Jared Goff being forced to pass 68 times last week against the Buccaneers to try and keep the Rams alive in that high-scoring game. I don't envisage a game this week that's 55-40. But I think if you can put that pressure back on Goff to be the primary source of production in that offense, then I think it goes a long way to helping you beat the Rams. I think this Rams team need that run. They need that run to set up the rest of their game. And it's a kind of an obvious comment. There are a lot of teams around the league that do that. You need a balanced style of football to win games. But if you look at this sort of matchup, the Seahawks currently rank number 4 as the number 4 best running defense in the league at 79.5 yards of rushing offense allowed per game. Interestingly, the Rams opposition from last week, Tampa Bay, currently ranked number 1 for rush defense, and they're only allowing about 58 yards. So in watching how Tampa Bay played the Rams last week in limiting Todd Gurley to 5 carries for 16 yards and Malcolm Brown 5 carries for 14 yards, that's forcing Jared Goff to do the lion's share of the work on offense. And if you look at his stats this year, he's thrown 6 touchdowns. He's also already thrown 6 interceptions this season. I think it's a key to this game. You look at the Seahawks rushing defense this season. They've given up 34 rushing yards to the Bengals in week 1, 81 to the Steelers in week 2, 88 to the Saints in week 3, and 115 to the Cardinals week 4. The Rams, in their rushing offense, currently ranked 22nd in the league, rushing about 99.8 yards in each game. And their totals have consistently got lower. They had 166 yards of rushing offense against the Panthers in week 1, 115 against the Saints in week 2, 90 against the Browns in week 3, and then just 28 rushing yards last week against the Buccaneers in that 55-40 loss. I think that is where the game can be won or lost. If the Seahawks can stop the run, if they can minimize the impact on the ground of Todd Gurley and Malcolm Brown, I think this goes a long way towards Seattle being able to win this game. And I think this is a crucial matchup moving down the stretch with the Rams being able to put the Seahawks being able to put a little bit of space between themselves and their divisional opponents with a win. It really helps set up the rest of their season, especially in a tough division where the San Francisco 49ers have got better. They're currently 3-0. This is a massive game. I think Seattle can win this game. I think they can win the division without a doubt, and I think that they'll probably get the job done this week in Seattle, and it starts to put a little bit of pressure back on the Rams. This is a division that's improved over the offseason. We're finally seeing the 49ers perhaps take some steps forward that they were expected to take across the last few seasons. And the pack is sort of chasing the Rams. Both the games between Seattle and LA last season were close, both decided by less than a touchdown. And I felt coming into this year that the Seahawks could at least split their games against the Rams. And if they can do that, I think it really does go a long way to Seattle being able to secure a top spot in the NFC West. They've already, had an impressive win over the Steelers in Pittsburgh. Their season is set up really well. So, my prediction then for that game is for the Seahawks to get the job done. I'm not going to give a score prediction, but I think the Seahawks will get that win on Thursday night or Friday morning for us in Australia. Well, that's all I wanted to cover in today's episode. I hope you have enjoyed the video. look forward to watching that blockbuster game between the Rams and the Seahawks, and I'll be back on the weekend with a preview game for all of the Sunday matchups in Week 5 of the NFL. So I'll look forward to speaking to you then. Until then, you've been great. I've been reasonable. It's the Jake Bowtell Football Experience. Thanks for watching.